Hello there, my name is Sixo, but more on that later, as now it's time for a brand new Toy of the Week video. And today we're giving a bit of a nod to the younger fans of the Transformers franchise, as I've been thinking recently that it must be incredibly weird being a collector in your teens or even your 20s, yet all you get given is rehashes of the same old characters from before you were even born. Not that a lot of the new toys don't look great, mind you, and to be fair, it is fantastic to see stuff like Beast Wars being given a bit of focus in the upcoming Kingdom line. But even then, it's all been done before, right? Like, what we don't see much of these days is just an entirely new concept with fresh characters and a really different spin on the whole universe. And I say that as someone who remembers all too well the last time we got such a thing. Yes, I am of course in part referring to the Micron trilogy, which shook things up in a big way when it first hit the scene with Transformers Armada back in 2002. Whilst there were elements of the new storyline that felt familiar, including some of the classic character names coming back for another outing, Armada still managed to create an identity all of its own, and introduced numerous new concepts to the franchise as a whole. Which is weird, as Armada has seemingly been a bit forgotten about in terms of modern Transformers lines, in spite of the fact that there's clearly still quite a lot of love for it amongst collectors. What's also strange to consider is that the line is now actually 18 years old, which is the same amount of time that had passed since the start of Generation 1 when Armada first began in 2002. And if that realization is leaving you feeling a little old before your time, then welcome to the club, Micron Trilogy fans. Maybe the line's advancing years will mean that it comes back into focus with the franchise soon, who knows? After all, with Beast Wars currently getting a bit of love, it stands to reason that it could happen eventually. I mean, there was even a prototype of a Generations Armada Optimus Prime teased just last year, and although it hasn't been shown yet, you have to hope that Hasbro might have some plans up their sleeve. Anyway, today we're going back and taking a look at one of the Unicron Trilogy's poster boy characters in their souped-up Powerlinx form. This is Takara MC13 Hot Rod, but most Western collectors may prefer him by his Hasbro name. It's Hotshot. MC13 Hot Rod is the Takara equivalent Super Mode release of the upgraded Powerlinx version for one of the Armada line's most recognizable names, Hotshot. Whereas most people may think of Hotshot in his more traditional yellow paint job, here things have been mixed up a little, with contrasting colours giving the character quite a new look indeed. Whilst the Powerlinx toy mostly shares the same mould as the original version, the new deco brings a whole extra lease of life to proceedings, setting the two of them apart quite considerably overall. In his car mode, Hotshot is now sporting a base coat of Hot Rod Red, complete with an extremely attractive flame pattern adorning the bonnet. The paint applications on the flames are absolutely exceptional and really help to make this colour scheme pop. Hotshot never looked so good. The design is of course a clear homage to the original 1986 version of Hot Rod, and even though the two toys are very different, they do evoke a similar vibe at least. On the whole, Hotshot's vehicular form is a fairly sleek affair, with plenty of attractive details to admire aside from those eye-catching flames. There are also some notable gimmicks to keep you busy, such as the mounted engine section, which can be placed on the front of the car and pressed to reveal a set of claws from the bumper. Of course, as with any Armada toy, the main source of the gimmickry involves Hotshot's Minicom partner, the helicopter known as Jolt. Though a small little thing all by himself, Jolt looks great in his new colours, and features one of the best spinning propellers I think I've seen on a copter alt form. Along with other Minicons, Jolt can be plugged into any of the ports available on Hotshot's car mode, giving him a few much needed upgrades and a decidedly different look. But the real trick comes from folding Jolt in half and attaching him to the middle of Hotshot's spoiler as a kind of speed boosting propeller. It may look utterly ridiculous, but it's worth embracing these kind of gimmicks, especially as they're a large part of what make the Armada line so much fun to begin with. Alternatively, you can plug the engine weapon into the underside of the copter mode and have Jolt looking like he's ready for action at a moment's notice. On the whole, it's great to see this repainted version of the character next to the yellow original, as they really do look very different from one another. That's even more true in robot mode, mind, but in order to get you there you have to go through a simple yet sleek transformation process. Whilst it's not difficult at all, the conversion still carries a few surprises along the way, and leaves you with a very distinctive robot form indeed. It's amazing to see what a difference the updated palette brings to this mold, as it somehow wears the reversed colours with more grace than the original version, at least in my opinion. Of course, the biggest difference here is the face, which has been entirely remoulded and now looks a world away from the sculpt as we knew it. The small trade-off is that the visor can no longer be flipped down, but that's not much of a price when you consider how much more handsome the toy looks now. The Takara version of this toy even features a few small improvements all of its own, such as a better painted forehead and a much more crisp take on the Autobot logo adorning his shoulder. Additionally, it retains the light-up gimmick from a retooled version of the original toy in its right hand, which can be used for effect with the translucent Starsaber sword, assuming you have it of course. Even if you don't, then it's time to get Jolt back in on the action, as he brings yet more gimmicks into play for Hotshot's robot form. That all happens courtesy of a Micron port found rather unusually on Hotshot's bum. Simply plug Jolt in and the entire front wheel section pops up to form a missile launcher. Now you just need to slide Jolt up a little, and the resulting wedgie will flip the launch around and shoot the missile across the room, never to be found again. So it goes. You can then also plug in Jolt's engine weapon to the front of Hotshot's chest to create an armoured effect of sorts. It's a shame that Hotshot doesn't have a hand blaster all of his own, but he's certainly not lacking in firepower thanks to a little help from Jolt. On the whole then, there are plenty of nice things to say about this souped up take on one of the Unicron trilogy's most classic characters. I've thoroughly enjoyed my recent endeavour of getting to know the Armada toy line, and in many ways Powerlinx Hotshot has been a real highlight of that so far. It's just one more concrete example of why this line of toys is still loved by so many collectors, even after all these years.
So as someone who's only just recently come back to discover much of the Armada toy line for the first time, I have to say that it's been a bit of a blast so far, and a toy like this is just a great example of why. I mean, it's chunky, fun, loaded with play value, and it just looks ace all round. I guess if anything, it's this version which was a bit of a revelation for me, as I'd always been more aware of the original yellow toy, and I was never all that keen on the face sculpt for one thing. So when I finally bit the bullet and picked up this Powerlinx version, needless to say, I was very pleasantly surprised indeed. I feel like the remoulded face was the last thing to fully cement my appreciation for this toy in general, and now what can I say? It's love. So anyway, a bit of a shout out to all the young'uns out there for keeping this whole endeavour going. Just know that even though us oldies can be a bit stuck in our ways sometimes, we do appreciate everything you bring to the franchise. Right, it's time for my nap, so that's it from me. Don't forget to drop me a like if you enjoyed today's video, and enjoy the rest of your day. TTFN.